Hi, today I'm going to do a secret makeup tutorial, and by that I mean just a really enhancing makeup that looks totally natural and no one will think that you've got any makeup on at all, but you will look beautiful. And it is something which I would definitely wear if I was not having a day off, but if I was going to be seeing people and didn't want to look like I'd tried too hard and wanted to look at my best but without looking like I'm wearing any makeup. And it's still one of my favourite looks, and I think if you do it well, it's amazing how transforming it is without even realising. The power of subtlety sometimes is quite astonishing. So I'm going to start with base. I'm using Makeup Forever HD. Now this is more of does have more coverage than you would think of actually for this type of secret makeup, but the pigment's very fine milled, so I think that if this is spread really thin, actually it gives the same effect. So I'm going to start by using one tiny pump, not even a pump, half a pump, and just dotting around so I can kind of gauge where I want it. And then I'm going to start to blend with fingers to start with. So fingers are particularly good if it's a liquid formula that you're using. And you can do this type of makeup with any type of foundation. Just make sure it's really one that you can sheer out a lot. And any areas of your skin that are just naturally very evenly toned, or you feel like you don't need any makeup, then you can skip those areas. So once you've applied the foundation to all of the areas where you feel that you need it, or whether it's all over the face, next you're going to take either a clean brush if you're used to using brushes, or you can use a damp sponge, which I'll show you as well. And then you're just going to buff over all of your foundation. This will just help to really push it into the skin, but it will also absorb the top layer. So particularly if you're using one that does have quite a bit of pigment in it, it will just take off. You can see the synthetic fibres are just absorbing that very, very top layer. Alternatively, you could use a sponge if you're used to using a sponge and just put a mist on it. And any areas where if you've gone in a little bit heavy or you feel you can see the foundation, you just go over. And the damp sponge will just, again, it just picks up that top layer. Once you've done that one layer and you just have a really good look in a magnifying mirror if you need to, just to check that that is all totally seamless with the skin. And then if you want to, you can always go over on any areas and add a tiny bit more. If you do have any breakouts or any areas that are redder than other areas of the face or any pigmentation, then you can just go back in onto those areas. Again, just keep it really light and lift off a little bit each time. It's like one step forward, two steps back. And as I've been saying for years, thin layers are so much better than one thick layer. So next I'm going to do blush, and I'm going to do blush because I want to give it time to melt into the foundation so it all becomes part of the skin. So as the foundation is settling into my skin, the blush settles into my skin. Best way to do it so it's really imperceivable is either with a cream blush, which is nice for normal to dry skin, or for a liquid blush which sets more, which is better for oily skins. I'm actually going to use the cream one because my cheeks are a bit dehydrated at the moment. So I'm going to do a few taps of that and then just start to place it into the skin. You can use your foundation brush if you want, you can use your sponge, or you can do the whole thing with fingers, although I always recommend taking the edge off with your foundation brush. And just build up slowly. You want it to look exactly natural. Now in terms of the colour that you choose, again, you want it to be natural. So if you're someone that has a lot of pink in your skin, don't go for the orangey type blushes. Or if you're somebody that is more warm, go for the more peachy colours. So it just needs to really sit within the colours of your skin. Keep tapping. And if you have a lot of natural colour in your cheeks already and you want to skip this bit with the blush, that's fine, because your natural colour will come through the foundation, which will look really nice as well. Now I can always add more of this, but I'm just going to start there so that has time to melt into my makeup. And then just go around the edge. So I'm also going to do highlighter now as well. For the same reason, I want it to really settle in. I'm going to use this RMS Beauty one. And what you're looking for is something which doesn't have any obvious glitter particles in, or doesn't have any holographic or anything like that, which again is not going to make the makeup look imperceivable. It's still nice, but it's a different look entirely. Just going to tap my finger in there and just start to lay it onto the cheekbone. Don't want it to look too blingy. It needs to really blend in, and the reason I'm doing it now is because I'm going to conceal afterwards. So by the time I put concealer over the top around my eyes, you won't see the obvious blinginess anymore, but it will still give a subtle highlight. So you're looking for one with really small particles and one that blends in with your skin tone. Cream just blends into the skin more than powder. But if you do want to use a powder, just use a little bit of powder and mix it in with your own moisturiser. And that can, if you don't have a cream one, I mean, it'll save you from having to invest. Also going to use this on centre of my nose. Very subtly on the top lip. Press it in there so it's pressed into the skin. And again, I can always come back and add a dab later. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is use concealer, and this is more of a creamy texture. And then just start to apply it to the dark areas of the face, the shadowy areas. So into the corner, just to lift any shadows that you have. When you're doing a no makeup, don't take it too close or too thick right under the lower lashes, because then you do have an abrupt end. And if you do that, take a dry Q-tip and just buff away, because it's a dead giveaway. So I'm just focusing on where I want to lift those shadows. You can then blend it in with fingers. You could blend it in again with a slightly dampened sponge if you wanted to really make sure that you cannot see it at all. You can also go back in with your foundation brush if you think that you've left any edges, and just gently, seamlessly blend that in. So we're not using it to highlight, so we're not gonna, unless you've got any redness, like I sometimes get a bit of redness here and here myself. I'm gonna blend that in with the brush. And this is the time where if you do have blemishes, then you will do my pinpoint technique, which I do have a video about and I'll link to. But any areas where if you have any, that's got my little pigmentation mark there. And then I'm going to use a tiny brush and my super magnifying mirror just to go over all my little pinpoint concealing bits. So I'm just going to go over any marks, or if there's any spots. My skin is actually good today. Don't have any, I've got one blemish there actually. One spot there. Now this is worth spending time on, because this is where we're going to get the seamless, undetectable look. I'm not going to powder my concealer yet because I need to give it time to, if it's going to crease, it needs a bit of time to do that. And then I can put on another thin layer once I've blended it. But I'm just going to take away any little bits of pigmentation, really. So you can see like one there. And the whole point about this undetectable makeup is that you still have texture in your face and you still have a variety of colour. So it's not that blank canvas where your face is all completely one colour. So you do have, you know, the patina of the skin, the natural kind of changes to the skin. And that's the thing, that if you take that away, suddenly it looks like makeup. Whereas if you do have that, it's not a mottled effect, but it's that effect where you do see other colours within the skin, you know, areas where it is maybe slightly a bit redder or a bit pinker or a little bit of, you know, undertones coming through. That's what will help to deceive, if you like, and make you look like you're not wearing anything. So now it's been on a minute, so I'm just going to check underneath my eyes. Tiny crease, hardly anything. But I'm going to use the tip of this sponge just to take those away without taking off any concealer. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a little bit, tiny bit more lower down, because I can see the area where I'm going to crease, which is higher up than that. Okay, so now I'm going to use powder, but I'm not going to powder the area where my blush is in case I want to add some more cream blush or some more highlighter later. So I'm going to use some translucent, nice, sheer, loose powder around the centre of my face. If you want to get into a smaller area, use one of these mini puffs. And you can just press into small areas if you want to take shine off. So I'm just going to go underneath my eyes and around my nose with that. So we're leaving all of this quite natural and letting that all melt in together. Now for the eyes, and I want to use something which just evens out the skin tone but doesn't look like I'm wearing any makeup. Now, something like a very light, reflective, thin concealer, like one of those highlighter pen type things, they're quite good because they even out, but they don't look too heavy. So heavy foundations or heavy concealers on your eyelids, you can always see them. They just tend to look a bit dry and a little bit obvious. So I've actually discovered this, which I really love, which is a no eyeshadow, and this all over the lid. So the main thing is we don't want any obvious shimmer and shine. So another thing you could do this with is well, this is a liquid eyeshadow. We could also use a cream eyeshadow, like a paint pot or something like that. But just avoid the ones that have obvious glitter or obvious shimmer. I think that's the mantra for this whole look. And the nice thing about this one is even with a ×10 magnifying mirror, I cannot see that at all. It just looks like I have the most lovely, sheeny, lovely eyelids. So next on to mascara, we're going to give a really good curl. If you have fabulous eyelashes, then you can just curl them and leave it there, because if they're thick, that's going to be enough. Or you could put a brow gel through them so they just look a little bit glossier. If you don't have fabulous eyelashes like me, then you're looking for a mascara which really defines and doesn't clog up the eyelashes, so it looks really natural. I'm going to use the DHC one, which I find to be the most defining of all. Very tiny, tiny brush. Again, I'm going to use my magnifying mirror so I can see if I get any little blobs. And then I'm just going to really carefully zigzag through so that I'm getting the enhanced lash but without any little bobbles or anything. And then to be extra careful, just go through with a comb so that they're all separated, and if there's any bubbles on the end, just pinch them off. I mean, no one's going to be looking at you that close up anyway, but I did say this was going to be secret makeup, so I do want it to be 100% undetectable. And then I'm just going to put one more layer on. And exactly the same on the lower lashes. Well, in fact, before I finish those, I just want to put on some cream or beige pencil. Just because it's good for this type of look. It just lifts. Not a lot though, you don't want it to look like white under the eyes. But see the way that just adds a nice sparkle to the eyes, a secret sparkle. And then comb through those lower lashes so they look like you were born with them. So if you're someone that really can't live without your eyeliner and you want more definition, obviously we don't want to have eyeliner because this is secret makeup, then go back in with your mascara, use an angled brush like a brow brush, put plenty on, and then just wipe it so that it's just on one edge of the brush. And then just put it underneath the roots of the eyelashes. So it's not, you're not coating the waterline, you're just almost filling in the gaps in between your eyelashes, if that makes sense, in between the roots of your eyelashes. You can go all the way along if you want. I'm just going to do the outer corner. It's very subtle, you don't really, definitely can't notice it close up. And this is actually a secret tip. So I do this technique on Kate Winslet and a lot of my celebrity clients. So onto brows, and for this look, it's all about filling the brows in without actually seeing any powder or product. The best thing to use is either one of the liquid pens or a very fine pencil is also really good, because we're going to sort of draw little hairs where we need to. So any gaps that I have, I'm just going to fill in with light strokes. We also need to make sure that we can see gaps between the brows, because as soon as they start all joining up and blocking, then it's a dead giveaway. So particularly here at the inner corner, if you do have gaps, you want to replace those gaps with actual hairs, mini hairs. I think that's probably going to be enough. And then you can either finish it with a clear gel or you could use a tinted gel. In fact, if you've got good brows anyway, you might need to bother with the pencil. And just clear off the gel off the end, because you don't want to have like a really, sometimes when you use gels and they're fresh out of the thing, you can see the gel on the brows. So I'm going to use this boy brow, but I'm going to use a tissue just to take off the excess and then go through and just massage them slightly. What this will do is separate them, and the more separated they are, the more convincing they'll look. Like that. So to finish off, I'm going to do lips, and I want to enhance the colour of my lips because they're quite pale. If you have a lot of colour in your lips, you might want to just do a lip balm and a little bit of pencil, but I want to give a little bit more colour. So I'm actually going to go back in with the blush that I used. So I'm going to start by really just rubbing it into the lips. This does have a sheen, but it's not glossy, and I think I do want to avoid the glossy look because it will just look like makeup. So I think that's quite a good colour because it definitely enhances. And even with this secret makeup look, I still want to use a lip pencil. You know how I like to cheat that bottom lip. This is going to be a little bit too colourful, but I'm going to smudge it all in. Just gives me a little bit more volume. Might do a tiny bit on the top as well. going to blend that in. And then while I've got the blush out, and that's a really good way actually, if the colour that you've used on your cheeks does look good on your lips, you know that it was the right colour to use on your cheeks in the first place, because it's not too whitish. Sometimes when you use, you know, the colour doesn't work in both places. And when you've got the right colour, it really does. I'm going to go back in, since we've got a little bit of liquid here. That's way too strong, but don't worry. And just push a little bit of tiny bit more colour in there. The heat of the fingers is quite an amazing thing. If you do add more colour, you find you might need to go back in and do a little bit more concealing around any little blemishy areas. That's fine. Now, have I gone too far with this lip colour? No, I think I could get away with that. I don't think anyone would question that wasn't the real me. So, last bit of powder. One thing I will say as well is, if you are someone that does just need more makeup, even with a no makeup, you can use something like a brow powder, because brow powders tend to be very ashy tones, and you could just use a tiny little bit of brow colour just into your socket line. So something that you'd normally use on your brows, very softly into the socket line. You could also, with a small brush or even a Q-tip, use a similar sort of shade to smudge along your lower lash line, but just really, really, really tinily, just at the roots, because that also works. So I'm just going to go back in and do my last little bit of powder. Oh, before you finish as well, and before you do your last powder, just go back and look if there's any lines. There aren't any, but if there are any lines on the concealer, just remove them, and then you can't see anything. My final buff over. Just take my shine off, or using your little puff if it's better for you. We're going to leave all the natural shine, but take off the shine that we don't want. And obviously, if you've got oily skin, then you're probably going to want to use more powder, but just so you can't see it. And if you do apply with a puff, go over at the end with just a clean brush. It just takes off what's sitting on the skin. And if you find that you've put too much powder on, you don't look really natural anymore, spray over with a mist, because it just brings back all the natural texture in the face, but in a good way. So that is the finished look, and I'm going to put the before and after together, because sometimes you look at the finished look when it's this type of makeup and think nothing's changed, but when you see the before and after together, then you really feel the power of the subtlety. And yeah, it's a really nice look. I feel like, yeah, obviously I haven't got any makeup on, I'm just looking really good, and I think it's one of my favourite looks. Hope that was helpful. See you soon.